Good morning from WKYT News. I'm Bill Bryant, and we welcome you to Kentucky Newsmakers. Congressman Andy Barr is doing at least two jobs at once right now, representing the 6th District in the U.S. House and running for the U.S. Senate. It's a divided time in our nation. Election results and polling all show that. That's the landscape as Congressman Barr reaches outside his district for the first time for votes and support. Immigration, the federal budget, health care, tariff policies, substance abuse, and the lay of the land around the world are among the mix of issues out there. Barr was first elected to the House in 2012, but now Senator Mitch McConnell's impending retirement is opening that seat for the first time since 1984. So Congressman Barr is with us today, and we welcome him. Thanks for coming. We appreciate it very much.
Great to be with you.
We have a lot to discuss, and let's begin with your decision to leave a relatively safe U.S. House seat and leave it open and run for an open U.S. Senate seat. Do you think you can have more impact in the Senate?
I do. It has been a privilege of my lifetime to represent the Central Kentucky District in the U.S. House for 13 years. Those 13 years have flown by, and it's been a tremendous opportunity to represent the hopes, the dreams, the aspirations, to understand the challenges of the people of Central and Eastern Kentucky, and to fight for those families and those businesses along the way. But what an incredible privilege it would be to represent the entirety of the Commonwealth, from Pikeville to Paducah, from Corbin to Covington, Louisville, all the way to every corner of this great state. And it's been so exciting and so much fun to get outside of my comfort zone, so to speak, and meet other people around Kentucky.
Let's talk about that. As you venture outside your district for the first time, which is about 1/6 of the population,
right.
Hence we have 6 districts in the state, what are you seeing in terms of support?
I'm seeing a lot of support, and I did my due diligence. I didn't just jump into the race. You talk about leaving a relatively safe seat. It wasn't a safe seat. This was a congressional seat that was held for a pretty long time by a Democrat. It took 2 times for me to flip the seat into Republican hands, and then I was constantly, every 2 years, being challenged by the National Democrats. They wanted this seat back, and so they fought me over and over again. But I really take pride in the fact that over the years, through the competency and the professionalism and the responsiveness of my team, that we were able to not only keep the seat but earn support from independents and Democrats in this district. And I think the approach of perseverance, the approach of responsiveness and accessibility, of top-notch constituent service, that's something that I would want to take statewide. I think we've earned a positive reputation in that regard. People in other parts of the state have heard about our outstanding constituent service. And we're starting to tell the story to people who don't know me as well that, hey, yes, I am from Central Kentucky, but I'm an 8th-generation Kentuckian. I represent the big blue nation, but now I'm looking to go over to Louisville as well. And we think we can do a lot of good in the Senate.
We don't know, Congressman, if the GOP field is set yet in the Senate race, but we do know you face former Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron. He cites his own polling, saying that he is way ahead. We know that he ran wire to wire ahead in the 2023 Republican primary for governor. Do you believe you can defeat him?
Well, let me cite my own polling. And my own polling shows that when people know me and him equally, in other words, when our name ID is the same in the parts of the state that are most familiar with me and my record, obviously my own district, but also into the 5th congressional district where the media market is, where people know my representation, where we are equally known, I have a huge lead, a massive lead over the former Attorney General. And what's resonating with Republicans is not just that I talk about supporting President Trump and this agenda, but that I'm actually doing it, that I have a record of doing it, that I was the chairman of President Trump's re-election campaign in 2024, that I was the chairman because I was the very first of the federal delegation to endorse President Trump before the primary, because I was with him in the first term, because I invited him to my purple swing district in 2018, when many Republicans were running away from President Trump, I invited him to the Central Kentucky district, to the 6th district, where we won and held that seat.
He came and did a rally for you in Richmond in 2018.
In Richmond. And the other piece of it is that the only way a Democrat can win in Trump country, the only way a Democrat can win in Kentucky in 2026 is to do what, let's be honest, what Andy Barr did as governor, and that is to not only win the 6th congressional district, but win it convincingly over the former Attorney General. He beat Daniel Cameron by 19 points in my district. What's resonating with Republicans is that we cannot risk the seat. We cannot risk losing. I will not win. I will not lose the one swing district in the state, my own district.
Every candidate and every possible candidate seems very eager for President Trump's endorsement. You pointed out he came here for you in 2018. Do you predict he will support you in this primary?
He's endorsed me in all of my races in the past. I've endorsed him in all of his races. We have a close working relationship with both him personally. I've had several conversations about this open Senate seat with him. And he knows that I'm not just talking about supporting him, but that I'm actually fighting for him. I'm fighting for him on the one big beautiful bill and extending and making permanent the tax cuts from 2017. I voted for those tax cuts in 2017. I'm working with his cabinet, whether it's Treasury Secretary Bessent on economic policy and deregulation of financial services, or with Howard Lutnick on trade policy, or Jamison Greer on trade policy, or working with his national security team countering Iran and countering China. These are things that we're not just talking about doing, we're actually working hand in glove with the Trump administration. I think he sees that. I think he appreciates that. Rhetoric is one thing, but action is another. And my actions in support of this agenda, which represents the people of Kentucky, I think is what ultimately will earn me the endorsement.
Do you disagree with the president on some issues?
Well, I mean, I can't think of any, because even in cases where, for example, Kentuckians have asked questions about the administration's policy, for example, on trade, what I remind a lot of my fellow Kentuckians is that the short-term turbulence of the tariffs, let's say, for example, on bourbon, they don't want retaliatory tariffs from the EU. But the flip side of this policy, the enormous potential of this policy, is that it opens up markets for American exporters, including the bourbon industry. And if we open up, say, India, which is the largest market, 1.4 billion people, that just demonstrates the power of this tariff policy.
You voted for House Resolution 1, which is known as the big, beautiful budget bill, as the president and many Republicans call it. You have urged the Senate to pass it. Do you share any concerns for those who fear cuts to Medicaid or education or research in that spending plan?
So now remember that this is a very important bill for my constituents and all Kentuckians, because it would prevent a $4 trillion tax increase. That is very, very important. I mean, if we do nothing, if we allow those tax cuts to expire, what you're looking at is potentially huge job losses. You're looking at a recession. You're looking at take-home pay plummeting. And what we've seen in the first 5 months of this administration is inflation coming down and real wages going up. We've had the highest real wage growth under this president in anticipation of these expanded tax cuts, and because of deregulation and because of more energy production and because of more optimism in the economy, the highest real wage growth among blue-collar workers in 60 years. This will be jet fuel for the economy. So number one, you have to remember what we have to do, which is to provide that jet fuel for the economy, continue to expand those tax cuts. Secondly, with respect to the Medicaid reform, which you're talking about, which you're referring to, what we're doing here is we're actually strengthening Medicaid. We're strengthening Medicaid because we're targeting Medicaid to the very population that needs it, the indigent, the dual eligible elderly on Medicare and Medicaid, and individuals who are disabled. What we don't want to do is have waste, fraud, and abuse in that program that jeopardizes that safety net.
About a third of Kentuckians receive Medicaid. Do you anticipate that number going down in Kentucky?
I anticipate that number going down for the able-bodied, work-capable Kentuckians who we want something better for them than Medicaid. What we want for able-bodied, work-capable adults is a job where they can get private health insurance through their workplace. And if they do work and their employer doesn't provide them with health insurance, they can still get Medicaid as long as they are working and participating.
Some groups have said rural hospitals could be at risk because of their heavy reliance on Medicaid dollars, and that Kentucky could be very hard hit with that. Do you share that concern?
I do share that concern, and I've been advocating with my colleagues, including Chairman Guthrie, our congressman from the Bowling Green area, who's done a fantastic job in crafting the Medicaid reforms, delivering through cuts to waste, fraud, and abuse, not to the program for the people who need it, but through waste, fraud, and abuse, $900 billion in savings to shore up the safety net for people who actually need it. What Chairman Guthrie was able to achieve in that is making sure that those rural hospitals, UK healthcare, was not hurt. Now, the Senate made some changes to that, and we're having conversations with the Senate about pulling them a little bit back towards Chairman Guthrie's mark to make sure that we don't have some problems with our rural hospitals and getting them reimbursed so that they can invest in that preventative care and make sure we keep Kentuckians healthy.
There's some major international issues out there as well. We'll be back in just a moment with Congressman Andy Barr, who's a candidate for the U.S. Senate. We'll talk a little more about his Senate campaign when we come back on Kentucky Newsmakers. Welcome back to Kentucky Newsmakers from WKYT as we visit with Congressman Andy Barr, who has represented the 6th District in Central Kentucky since his election in 2012. He's now running for the U.S. Senate. Congressman, we're all closely watching international developments, also aware that this is being taped at midweek and some things could happen, but Republican Congressman Thomas Massie introduced legislation to try to keep the U.S. out of the Israel-Iran conflict without congressional approval. Would you oppose or support that resolution?
I cannot disagree more with my colleague from Kentucky. This is a dangerous resolution. Our enemies are Israel's enemies. Israel's enemies are our enemies, Iran, and the tyrants in Tehran, as they call for the annihilation and the destruction of the state of Israel, our key ally in the region. They chant death to America. This is about American national security. If you want to talk about America first and America first policy, we need to support President Trump, not oppose President Trump in what he's doing, which is standing with the nation of Israel. Israel is like a huge American aircraft carrier in the Middle East in a very unstable part of the world. They are a counterweight to terrorists. They're a counterweight to the weapon state in Iran. And a nuclear Iran, as President Trump has correctly said, cannot stand. We cannot allow Iran to have a nuclear weapons capability. Unfortunately, in the previous 4 years under President Biden, we saw what weakness delivers, and weakness delivers sanctions relief, which meant that that Hamas and Hezbollah were emboldened to carry out the atrocity of October 7th against the innocent people of Israel. And so we need to stand with our key ally Israel in not only defending the people of Israel from a nuclear Iran, but also to defend our homeland from a nuclear Iran. And so it's very, very important that we support President Trump in his support of the people of Israel.
We know you and some other House members have reintroduced what is known as the Fight China Act. That's an acronym for Foreign Investment Guardrails to Help Thwart China Act. There's a companion piece of legislation in the Senate. I think Senator Cornyn of Texas is sponsoring that. What would it do?
So one thing that President Trump has said to me and to my colleagues is, besides the One Big Beautiful Bill and extending the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act and expanding those and providing that jet fuel for the economy, in addition to that, he wants a lot of his executive orders codified by Congress. That's what my bill would do. It would codify his America First investment policy. For the first time in my lifetime, we have a president, Republican or Democrat, who is taking the threat from the Chinese Communist Party seriously. As a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, as a member of the Select Committee on the Strategic Competition between the United States and the Chinese Communist Party, I take this threat seriously as well. And one thing we absolutely cannot afford, in addition to having spy balloons cross our military sites, in addition to the unfair trade practices, in addition to the deadly Chinese fentanyl pouring across Biden's open southern border, we also have to stop the flow of capital into sensitive technologies that support the civil-military fusion in China. China is rapidly modernizing its military. It's investing massively in the technologies of the future, including artificial intelligence, quantum computing, semiconductors, very sensitive technologies. And so my bill would block U.S. and non-U.S. investment from flowing into those technologies of national security concern. We would also sanction in this bill, give the president the authority to sanction Chinese entities that are part of the Chinese military industrial complex. So companies that support the People's Liberation Army, companies that support surveillance of the Uyghurs and the human rights violations that are going on in the interior of the country. But the main thing is we want to protect American investors from unwittingly, through their 401ks or their IRAs or their investments, unwittingly financing the rise of China.
You've long taken a tough line on immigration. Do you feel the president is handling that appropriately? There was the protests out in L.A., and then he sent in troops to quell some of what was going on there that's resulted in a lot of protests around the country.
Well, it's really a disgrace to see these protesters actually defending illegal criminals, gang members, cartel members. This is not law and order. Law and order is defending and supporting the president's policies, which finally are securing the southern border. Kentucky has been on the front lines of the open border crisis. We are one of the leading states in terms of drug overdose mortality. If you talk to the narcotics officers of Kentucky, or the Kentucky State Police, or the sheriffs around Kentucky, fentanyl is the leading cause of overdose deaths in Kentucky, the leading cause of deaths for young adults in this country. And that's directly the result of our open southern border. And that's why it's important not only that this president in just 5 months' time has been able to decrease illegal border crossings by 95%, but also has successfully executed deportations of dangerous illegal criminals, cartel members. And instead of protesting law and order, instead of protesting a more safe, secure country, these people should be celebrating these policies that are making our communities safer.
In a separate budget action that is not part of the House Resolution 1, public broadcasting would lose federal funding that has already been allocated, and the KET longtime executive director Shay Hopkins called the vote extremely disappointing and says that it will substantially diminish KET's local programs and educational services. Public radio stations have said the same, and as well as their ability to provide emergency information. You talked about mitigating possibly the hospital issue in Kentucky.
Right.
Do you see doing the same in that situation?
So first of all, let me just start by saying I strongly support the efforts of DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, to take out waste, fraud, and abuse. We saw some spectacular cases of taxpayer funding abuse going to USAID, of cases where taxpayer dollars were actually going to programs that actually undermined our national security and pushed lesser developed countries away from us and towards communist China or towards terrorists. So number one is to make sure we're not spending money on things that undermine our country's interests. Secondly, I supported the package, the so-called rescissions package, about $9 billion in savings, in large part because we can't afford it anymore, Bill. We're running a $36 trillion national debt. Our interest payments now outstrip the entire national defense budget. We're spending $1 trillion a year on interest alone. We're literally teetering on bankruptcy in this country. We have got to stop the spending spree. I applaud my colleagues for looking everywhere for savings when they can get them.
And that includes in the public broadcasting sphere.
Let me just say, in my opinion, NPR and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting did a great disservice to their own mission by going down this woke DEI road and supporting very political cause, politicizing their own mission and picking sides. Now, there's some wonderful things. I've talked to Shay and the great people over at KET. There's some wonderful things they do in terms of supporting education and supporting GEDs. We can come back and help them, and specifically help them with a stream of funding that goes directly to that mission, education, helping people get their GEDs, those kinds of things. But it's only about 15% of KET's budget. KET does a great job in accumulating private support. I'm going to work with KET to get them the funding that they need to continue their important educational mission. But the broader issue of waste in our government and starting to force the government to live within its means so we don't bankrupt our kids' future is very, very important.
Do you expect to debate your opponents for the Republican nomination for U.S. Senate?
I certainly hope so. I will. I'm ready to debate them. I want to debate them. This is a really, really important seat. Kentucky hasn't had an open U.S. Senate, this seat open since 1984, as you said. And I think Republicans want to know who is the candidate who's not only talking about supporting this America First agenda, but who's actually doing it. Who is the candidate in the race who was the chairman for President Trump's campaign in the 2024 primary election? It was me. It was not my opponents. Who's actually delivering instead of just talking about it? And finally, who is the guy who is best positioned to win? And that is me, and I look forward to that debate.
Do you expect it to be an expensive race?
I think it will be. I welcome the competition. Primaries, some people say, we shouldn't have a primary, we shouldn't have. No. This is the United States of America. We have a vibrant democracy in this country, despite what the left says. We have a very vibrant democracy, as evidenced by these competitive primaries and competitive general elections. Competition is a good thing. I welcome that.
Congressman Andy Barr, candidate for the U.S. Senate for the Republican nomination, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
We will wrap up Kentucky Newsmakers in a moment. Welcome back to WKYT's Kentucky Newsmakers. This past week, Juneteenth, marks the end of slavery in the United States. It's been 4 years since former President Joe Biden signed a law recognizing it as a federal holiday. While President Donald Trump has not said he wants to eliminate it, there have been some growing concerns about the holiday's future in light of the president's rollback of diversity, equity, and inclusion programs nationwide. WKYT's Alyssa Williams and photojournalist Darnell Crenshaw asked some folks, as well as some local, state, and federal lawmakers, about the future of the Juneteenth holiday.
What we do know is that the City of Lexington's website shows 7 Juneteenth-related events that started June 14th and continue through Saturday. That's for 2025. But what about the next year and the years afterward? Will the Juneteenth holiday dissolve as diversity, equity, and inclusion programs and initiatives are re-examined by lawmakers and corporate sponsors? Or will it survive the current conditions? We asked Lexington Mayor Linda Gorton if Juneteenth will be around for years to come.
Well, if I'm around, there will be. I think that Lexington is a kind of community that values its history.
Juneteenth existed before it was a federal holiday. Juneteenth freedom and emancipation will exist long into our future if we're willing to know it.
I do not fear that we will not have a Juneteenth. Just because someone doesn't recognize it a day doesn't mean we will respect that. We're going to still celebrate. It doesn't take a pen and paper to say it's okay to celebrate something.
Governor Beshear says Juneteenth will be an executive branch holiday every year he is in office.
I'd hope that everyone on the federal level would recognize Juneteenth, talking about the end of slavery, isn't some DEI thing. It is an important moment in our history.
On Wednesday, Kentucky's 6th District Republican Congressman Andy Barr was asked about the future of the holiday.
I think that's a settled question. I voted for the holiday, and I think it'll stay.
Regardless if America's newest federal holiday gets its budget cut through sponsorships or grants, it seems as though those who want to celebrate it will. In Lexington, with photojournalist Darnell Crenshaw, Alyssa Williams, WKYT.
And President Trump proposed Juneteenth to be a holiday in his Platinum Plan for Black America at the end of his first term and also during his re-election bid in 2020. Development for Lexington's new Legacy Business Park is getting underway. This week, Mayor Linda Gorton was joined by local and state leaders for a groundbreaking. The business park at 2850 Georgetown Road will be home to at least 19 businesses, and it should welcome in about 1,700 new jobs with an annual payroll of $100 million. As the renderings show, the various businesses will be surrounded by bike and pedestrian trails that connect to the city's Legacy Trail, as well as to some green spaces. The land was formerly used by the University of Kentucky's College of Agriculture.
Because of the proximity here to Coldstream, I think we are going to have an opportunity for better alignment of infrastructure and talent.
The project will cost about $23 million. Mayor Linda Gorton says the 200-acre property is a long time in coming. It was first talked about back in 2018. Well, that's Kentucky Newsmakers for this week. We thank you very much for joining us. Stay with WKYT News for all the latest, and you make it a good week ahead.